Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my look at the DLC for Warhammer 40,000 Boltgun. So that's called Forges of Corruption. I don't know how long this video will be because it is DLC. It's, I suppose, smaller, but I've covered this game before. We'll do a bit of a retread in case you're not across it. I've spent a couple of hours with this as I want to do with overviews. It's usually only just 2 hours. DLC is a little bit tricky because I don't think you can refund it. But it's only going for like $10 Australian, so it's pretty much pennies. And it's worth it because it's more Boltgun. In case you've missed it, in case you haven't played this game is phenomenal. I mean, just look at it in motion. It's a boomer shooter in this sort of pixel art styling of the 40k universe. It is very run and gun frenetic, like very fast, so leaning more into those sort of Unreal Arena sort of stylings as opposed to, you know, a lot of modern shooters have gotten a bit more slow and methodical, and even the modernization of boomer shooters can lean in that direction. No, this is very much run and gun. The guns are varied and they're all thumping and meaty and deafeningly loud, and all the audio, the soundtrack's just ripping through the entire time. Like, it is just an absolute sensory overload, and it's tough. Specifically, this DLC is very tricky, at least trickier than I recall. The original game, through the course of the campaign, it does ramp appropriately, but this is one of those DLCs, it's kind of expecting that you've beaten through the first game and you're looking for more. So if this is baby's first Boltgun, I would say start with the core game and just know that the DLC essentially adds on an extra campaign on the end. There's also a horde mode, but I believe that's just part of a free update, so if you don't want to get the DLC, you can check that out. I only dabbled very briefly, but it seems pretty, you know, self-explanatory. The gimmick or shtick, apart from this just being kind of pure and its boomer shooter, very action, twitch reaction, run and gun roots, is it actually takes the strength toughness system as inspiration that you see in the tabletop. For those who want to cross it, because I recognize a lot of people, gamers, I mean, I don't know the metrics, but I'm a 40k fan. I used to play tournaments on the tabletop, but I'm sure a lot of people know nothing about the rules and the rulebooks. So you have stat lines, think RPGs, all your little units, and weapons will have a strength and enemies will have a toughness. And generally speaking, like a Space Marine is 4 across the board in all his stats, so strength and toughness 4. And the way that it works with the way it tabulates data and all that, generally speaking, even trade will give you even chances. So like if you have a strength 4 weapon against a toughness 4 enemy, that's just going to be normal, right? As far as like dice rolls go. And as soon as you have someone going, you know, say a strength 4 gun against a toughness 5 dude, it actually starts to really penalize you know, your dice rolls and that sort of stuff. And the other inverse of it is like if you have something like a strength 8 weapon versus a toughness 4 dude, this is like an insta-kill, insta-gib situation. If they have, you know, wounds or extra lives, right? If they're a bit of a boss dude and they can get injured multiple times, no, not with a rocket launcher, that obliterates them. The reason for this seemingly adjacent history lesson is while this game's not dice roll related, it takes that system and all those concepts I explained to you and it brings them across into the damage tabulation in this. So when you're fighting an enemy, you'll see it in the footage. It'll have the name of the enemy, but it will also have their toughness stat. And you can also see down the bottom the strength stat of your weapon. So same again. I mean, most human cultist type dudes have toughness 3 and the shotgun, for example, has strength 3, so if you're in a fight like that, it's even Steven, and there'll be a little arrow or a line or whatever, and it just does normal damage. Now, I'd have to look it up, because I haven't thought about it since the first initial release, but if you go up even one step of strength, so for example, Boltgun versus normal cultists, it really, the damage goes up humongously and obliterates, but it cuts the other way. So when you're fighting boss items or larger Terminator champions even that have maybe toughness 5, if you're trying to hit them with a shotgun or whatever, it's going to do absolutely cents on the dollar. It's going to do no damage. And from this, it creates this really interesting interplay that, yeah, you've got different weapons that are kind of cool and all that, but you also have situational weapons and you become a little less flippant with heavy ammo, for example. You try and pick the right tool for the right job. And especially in my time with this DLC, because it's really pressing you so hard and it has a more of an arena-based, horde-based theme. Getting locked in and going through all the ammo in the room, you have to be making sure that you're putting your aces in your places. You can't be hitting a strength 2 frigging blue horror with a bloody strength 10 rocket launcher, or 8 or whatever it is. Speaking of, the multi-melter and the rocket launcher, I believe, are the new weapons here, and they're cool. They're awesome. The game front loads pretty hard with the difficulty and the use for it. You fight a bloody great unclean one in the first 30 minutes with a rocket launcher, and that was outrageously good fun. This game it's just great. It's awesome. But then I thought I'd mention that because that's the core gimmick, I suppose you could call it, but it's beyond that. It actually augments and dictates the way you play, and you start to get into a rhythm. And arguably it becomes a bit overwhelming once you get like bloody 10 weapons and hotkeys, so, you know, it's not that easy to just sort of hit the number button accordingly, and they're not all in ranked order as well. So 1 is the strength 4 bolt gun, 2 is the strength 3 shotgun, and I think like 6 is the grenade launcher, which is strength 3 area. So it's not like they're in strength ascending order, so mouse wheeling through them doesn't really work that well, and at a certain point you're not going to reach across the keyboard and press bloody 8 to pull out a rocket launcher in the middle of a fight. So it sort of starts to strain under the more weapons pressure, but I still think it's quite brilliant and inspired. Like, these are almost first world problems if I'm picking at them. The fundamentals of the game are great. So you start to memorize what an enemy looks like, what weapon you're going to want to hit him with at least. There are other components as well. I mentioned horrors because you're dealing with chaos pretty much with this. So you've got, you know, essentially undivided Space Marine types, but you've also got horrors from the 4 sects, and they all have their own, you know, unique variety and flavor. But pink and blue horrors, if you're not across it from Warhammer lore and tabletop, pink horrors, when you kill them, they split into 2 blue horrors. You can chainsaw melee in this, and you want to actually tactically try and hit them with that, because if you chainsaw a pink horror in half, he's not going to turn into bloody anything. So you just obliterate the corpse. Same goes for like aspiring champions. In this, these Terminator champions, and you'll recognize them by their like ponytail, big ugly head. If you do kill them, there is a chance that they'll be blessed by their god and come back for a second round. But if you chainsaw them in half, there's nothing to come back from. So I'm explaining the broad concepts of the interplay. Pick the weapon for the right choice, and then there's certain enemy types that you deal with certain ways, like trying to melee them. There are some new enemies, notably I'm pretty sure the Terminator with lightning claws is new, and you can get into melee duels with dudes, and often that's a way to solve a problem when you're sort of getting overwhelmed in a corner. Not with them, you don't do that. So that's cool. That's an enemy that's designed to counterplay, so that, you know, it's not just another enemy, it's an enemy that's actually augmenting the way that you want to play. Anyway, a lot of this video is me just explaining Boltgun. I recognize that this is just more Boltgun. The DLC is great. It hits the ground running, so it was a little bit of a shock to me because I haven't played the original in a little while. But yeah, generally speaking, get it if you loved it. This DLC lives up to the hype. A couple new weapons, couple new bad guys, couple new levels. Who cares? That's exactly what you want, and it's a couple of bucks. So yeah, should be out now by the time I put this video up. Check it out. Everyone get it. Team might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.